Hello my darlings, and welcome to a new reading vlog where I read books from the International Booker Prize, the Women's Fiction Prize and the Stella Prize long lists. Every vlog I will complete at least one book from each list, but I will also DNF if I am not enjoying the book. So the first three books that I have on this lineup to read are The Deserters by Matthias Enard, translated by Charlotte Mandel. So this is on the International Booker Prize list. And then from the women's fiction, we've got The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This is actually quite popular in the mainstream as well. And then we have Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks, which is from the Stella Prize long list. So those are the ones that I will be starting with, and I will update you once I have either finished the book or decided to DNF it, and I'll tell you my reasons why. Good morning, guys. I have some things to update you on. So I did finish reading Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks. This is a memoir that's mostly about grief. So Geraldine Brooks is a writer, and she retreats to a remote island in Australia to grieve the sudden death of her husband and to rebuild a life around the silence he left behind. So her husband was the journalist Tony Horwitz, and he collapsed on a street in America during Memorial Day. And then all of a sudden she was left with a fuck ton of paperwork and phone calls and administrative forms. Instead of being able to grieve in peace, she just had to deal with bureaucracy and logistics and estate management. And the thing that goes hand in hand with death, and that is taxes. And then 3 years later, after his death, she decides to abscond to a shack on Flinders Island and give her grief the quiet space it deserves. So the book was in its way exploring how modern life often denies people the space to mourn, replacing ritual with paperwork. The main themes in this were of sudden loss, rituals of mourning, love, nature as a space for healing, the clash between modern life and ancient grieving practices, and memory and storytelling. I held his hand. I don't ever want to let it go. Grief is a theme that I really resonate with and enjoy. It's something I've experienced a lot of in my life, so naturally this was on a topic that resonates with me. I thought it was so fucking gross how she was delivered the news of her husband's death. It was completely lacking any sort of respect and human decency and sensitiveness. She just got a call from one of the doctors to say, he's dead. No, you can't come and see him. His body will probably be taken on this day. Like, he was just so insensitive, and it was awful. And she was given conflicting information, and she ended up going to the hospital because she wanted to see his body. They wouldn't allow her to. And I'm like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? So your partner dies at the hospital and they don't let you see them? Is that common practice in America? That sounds absolutely fucking bonkers to me. And then they got her to, to identify the body via a photograph. So she didn't actually ever get to see her husband's body until it was finally released to her funeral service mortician. It was very upsetting to read that. I don't know how she dealt, like, that's beyond me. It's, like I said, to call someone with the word, that's the worst phone call you can ever receive in your life. Someone you love has died. That is the worst fucking experience you can imagine. And to just dump it on a person, not to ask, hey, are there people with you at the moment to make sure she's got fucking support? No, they just brusquely let her know, your husband's dead. All right, I gotta go. I've got a busy shift. See you later. So yeah, that was rough. And then obviously she was blindsided by the taxes and the legal work and the wills and healthcare, because she was living in America with her American husband. She's Australian, and we all have heard how horrible the American healthcare system is. So because he was the primary policy holder, they were all kicked off the healthcare. Crazy stuff. She was looking at other cultures, mourning and grieving and funerary practices. Mostly she was focused on Jewish traditions because her husband was Jewish, and Indigenous Australian because she was obviously from Australia and had worked with Indigenous communities. Overall, I never rate like memoirs and stuff unless I think this is a 5-star because just of how it is written, but because I'm doing this for a prize list, evaluation. If I had to give it a rating, it would probably be a 4.25. I honestly wish she hadn't included the part where she ran over and killed her 17-year-old dog. I'm like, did we really need to know that? I don't think we really needed to know that. And that was very, very upsetting. But otherwise, it's just very simply written. It's very easy to read because of the way it is written. Obviously, it's about a very heavy topic. Vibe check, windswept island solitude, tea in a quiet shack while staring at the ocean, remembering someone you love. I think you would like reading this book if you like reading literary memoirs about grief, or if you are a reader of Brooks's work, or you're curious about Brooks as a person and you want to get a sneak peek into her personal life. I was not familiar with her or her husband, so I didn't have any of that background context when going into this book. Similar books to this would be The Year of Magical Thinking and Hereafter, so other memoirs about grief. But I have now ticked off the Stella Prize books, so I will now be focusing on the International Booker and the Women's Prize fiction. So far, I've really enjoyed all of the Stella Prize books I have read. So with International Booker, I went on to The Deserters by Matthias Ennard, translated by Charlotte Mandel. This is a war lit fic, and it contains two seemingly unrelated stories. So one is about a deserter who is fleeing war, and the other is about scholars reflecting on a communist mathematician's life. And I think gradually both of these stories reveal the wreckage that conflict leaves behind, I assume, based on the synopsis. So with the first story, you had a very muddy, traumatized soldier stumbling through Mediterranean wilderness trying to find shelter and safety and not die or get caught. And then you had this intellectual conference on a ship where academics were discussing the life of an East German mathematician who survived the Holocaust, endured the Cold War, and believed in the system that collapsed during the fall of the Berlin Wall. This wasn't doing anything for me. Now, I think this is definitely a me thing as well. I don't tend to like books that are about war or politics. In regards to contemporary war and politics, like if it's a fantasy world, different story, I'm okay. But with books that center around real life events that we have experienced, especially where currently we are literally going through a war, and Australia is just becoming more of an authoritarian nanny state. Like, don't even get me started on the hate speech laws that have just passed, and it's very funny about who they're silencing. Can't say anything because writing a phrase on a t-shirt will get you arrested in Australia. Free speech is absolutely going down the drain. Being able to protest genocide is now pretty much illegal. So things are fucked up, and I read books to escape the hellscape I'm in. I understand I'm still fairly lucky in terms of my rights as a queer woman compared to other countries, but in terms of, like I said, freedom of speech and being able to protest things that you think are atrocious and wrong being taken away from you. And like I saw during the COVID pandemic, the right to work was taken away from you. Curfews were enlisted where you could not leave your home after 8 p.m. Things here, on top of the social media ban, where it's denying people access to information. Man, I'm not optimistic about government loosening their control over its people. I think it's just going to continue to get worse and worse. And books like 1984, for instance, are going to just be the roadmap of where we are headed. So yeah, I don't tend to like to read books about any world wars or awful politics and oppression of people that are, like I said, modern and contemporary lit fic, not fantastical or a horror story, for instance. If it's just too real to life, I don't like reading about them. I'm already depressed enough, you know? So I think, unfortunately, a lot of these International Booker Prize nominees do seem in some way to revolve around politics or war. And maybe that's the whole thing. They're like discussing current issues, and maybe that might just not be for me going forward. But I've started The Director, which is by Daniel Kalman, translated by Ross Benjamin. This is a historical lit fic, and it is about a famous film director who flees the Nazis and goes to Hollywood, but then he hates Hollywood and he comes home, and I think he ends up being recruited by the Nazi propaganda machine. The first chapter was very confusing. It opens up with him seemingly being on a talk show, but it seems like he has dementia or Alzheimer's. So Very confusing beginning. I didn't enjoy the first chapter. I will continue on and see how it goes. Oh, I think was this based on like a real director? So it's G.W. Pubst. I think this is though a fictionalized account of a real director, unless I'm mistaken. I'll have to actually look up this book more now, but I like to start reading it at night time. But yeah, I don't hold high hopes for this. So pretty much I will continue to read the International Booker Prize books until I finish one. So if I don't read this one, what do I have? I'm just trying to see what came in. I do have The Remembered Soldier, which I think is another awful book. I do already have We Are Green and Trembling. So those are two options I might go on to. In terms of the women's one, I got a copy of The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, so I'm loving the 1 week only holds. It just allows you to skip the queue, guys, and I guess most people don't feel like they can read a book within 1 week before becoming overdue, whereas I'm like, yeah, I can do that now. I've got a lot more time on my hands. If you saw my mood vlog, you'll know that I'm no longer homeschooling at this time, and I'm not working at the moment because the war just makes the stock markets too volatile for me to be able to trade them accurately. So yeah, I've got a lot of time on my hands to read. So I will see you again once I have an update for you. Okay, so I just got home from dropping the kids off to their dads for a day. I went and got my car washed because it was filthy, and that's not something I enjoy doing, washing my car. So I got that done, and while I was waiting, I actually ended up reading The Remembered Soldier by Anjet Dange, translated by David McKay. So this is an historical war fiction, and it is about a man with amnesia who gets claimed by a wife he doesn't remember, and now he has to decide if she is telling the truth about their lives together or if she's just running an elaborate relationship scam. So he seems to be traumatized, but he also seems to have memory loss. I think it was set in 1922, so yeah, World War One vet, but I just didn't care. It just was very slow, and this is a big book, and I don't care enough about the story or the characters to read 600 pages of it. So this is another one that I am DNFing. And then after that, I didn't want to go back to the director. I wanted a bit of a break. I don't know, I said I was going to prioritize the International Book Club at the moment with the options I've got. But while I was sitting there waiting for the car to be cleaned, which took a long time, I ended up going on to Anne Carmi by Deborah Dank. So this is part of the Stella Prize fiction list, and it is an Indigenous Australian memoir, and it's about a woman who, while she was searching archival records, she uncovers the hidden history of children stolen from her Aboriginal family, and it reshapes everything she thought she knew of her past. This is definitely a topic that I'm interested in. I am going to just check some family history with my mum before I mention anything else as to why, or this is also a topic that is one I feel strongly about, but I'm just going to double check my facts first. But yes, I have started reading that as well. Hey guys, so I was reading The Director by Daniel Kalman, translated by Ross Benjamin, which was about a director who leaves Nazi Europe, goes to Hollywood, comes back and ends up getting cornered into making movies for the Nazi regime. It wasn't doing anything for me. I wasn't really interested. Another area or subject that doesn't hold much interest for me in literature is film. I love movies. I don't like reading about movies in books. So I am DNFing this one. This one's just not for me as well. I then picked up The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This was for the Women's Fiction Prize, and it is an epistolary litfic. It is about a sharp-tongued woman who is nearing the end of her life and who uses letters to confront family rifts, old regrets, and one long-buried grief. So the main character is named Sybil, and she has never met a thought she couldn't turn into a strongly worded letter. Armed with stationary grudges and a lifetime of opinions, she writes to her children that she's alienated, friends she's annoyed, possible lovers, and ghosts never properly buried. Unfortunately, when you start to try and tie up loose ends when you're 70-something years old, you realize there are a lot of loose ends and not much time The main themes in this book were of the power of letters and written communication, aging and reckoning with one's life, complicated parent-child relationships, regret and atonement, love later in life, and long-buried grief. Grief shared, I think, can produce two outcomes. Either you bind yourselves together and hold on for dear life, or you let go and up goes a wall too high to be crossed. I think that sums Sybil up quite a lot. She definitely did the latter. I have to admit that I didn't like Sybil. She allowed her grief to turn her into a stone, something very cold and stubborn and hard and selfish and arrogant. The part that I hated the most was her ex-husband, who was the father of her children, and whom she divorced because of the grief that came in between them. So it wasn't anything he did, it was this other event that involved them both. And he is dying. So he writes to her, tells her that he is dying of cancer. He hasn't got long to live. He writes this beautiful letter. Not only does she not even write him back, she doesn't try to see him one last time. He moved back to Belgium, where he was from. She's in America. And then when he dies, she doesn't go to his funeral either. And I'm just like, bitch, are you joking me? Like, I just lost all sympathy for her in that moment. I just thought she's really not doing the right thing. And then she's just further grinding her feet, digging in and refusing to budge in a way where I felt wasn't right. And naturally, her daughter is furious with her and irate over her choice regarding her dad, Sybil's ex-husband. And I agreed with the daughter. I thought, Sybil, you're a bitch. She really did just come across as a bitch for most of the book to me. And I can understand how she got to that point, but 70 plus years and not once did you just work on your shit. Therapy exists, and yes, at the end she starts to try to see things from other people's perspectives and to be more communicative and open. Look, this whole book, the whole moral of this book is work on your communication. Be truthful and kind to the people around you, especially the people you love. Like, this isn't something that should come as a shock. Oh my gosh, I never knew about this. Like, this is something we humans know. Learn to communicate, say what you mean, be vulnerable and honest. But it took Sybil, almost all the way until her deathbed to figure this out. And so that's why I've given it a 3.5. I just didn't like the way she treated her daughter, especially the relationship between them. I was on her daughter's side. I could commiserate with her, but yeah, Sybil as a main character, didn't love. And I'm not a huge fan of epistolary novels to begin with, just the letter writing, and this was just letter writing or emails between Sybil and whomever she had correspondence with. There was a lot going on in the book, a lot of other things I won't bring up. I don't like to discuss the plot of books in depth. I feel like you spoil a lot of the innards. I think it's nice to read and discover that along the way, unless you guys would prefer that I talk more about the plot points. But one of the main things involving the grief isn't even on the blurb. So yeah, I'm being careful not to spoil anything, but I gave it a 3.5. It's very compulsive. It's very easily readable. There were some sad moments too involving other characters and the Nazi regime. So that was also brought up. A lot of sickness and death and poverty. So it was tackling a lot of topics and themes. I didn't list all of them before, but the main meat of the book is how this event of grief caused Sybil to hurt a lot of people. Vibe check. This book is giving stacks of handwritten letters, tea and passive-aggressive stationery, reflective autumn energy. I think you would like this book if you do like epistolary novels, or if you like stories about late life reflection and messy family dynamics. Similar books, A Man Called Ove and 84 Charing Cross Road. Now that I have read a women's fiction and a Stella Prize list, I've only got to read an international booker to finish off this vlog. So I have gone on to We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabezon Camara, translated by Robin Myers. It is a queer historical magical realism litfic, and it is about a gender-shifting former nun deserter from the Spanish conquest whom is hiding in the forest with 2 rescued slave girls. So we have Antonio de Arauso, who used to be a nun, and then he became a conquistador, and he's now a deserter hiding in the jungle with 2 Guarani girls he rescued from colonial slavery, and the Spanish Empire would very much like to see him dead. I've only just started, so I'll tell you more about it as I continue on. It's okay. I don't love how it's written, or, it's always hard to talk about the writing in the translated fiction because it's translated, so I'm not reading it in its original language in the way the author wrote it. But yeah, this one's a bit, I don't know, not as easy to read for me. But if I finish this book, it will be the final one. If not, I'll be going on to the next one. I don't have anything else. So I'm hoping this one is the one I stick with because, yeah, the other ones are going to be about a week and a half before I start getting some more in. But, I'm still happy that my library had every single book on all of these prizes. So that was just very fortuitous. I did request some of the other libraries that didn't have some of the books to get them in. So I will be first up. Hopefully they process those ones quickly. We'll see how we go.
Hi, honey. Hi.
Hello, my darlings. So I was reading We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabezon Camara, translated by Robin Myers. Unfortunately, I found this really dense and dull, and I just didn't care about the story or the characters, so I am DNFing that. I am not having a lot of luck with the International Booker this year, unfortunately. Compared to the other 2 prize lists, it is just not working for me at the moment. I will get something soon so I can finish this vlog off. Okay, so I have finished the final book for this vlog, the International Booker book, and that is On Earth as It Is Beneath by Ana Paula Maia, translated by Padma Viswanathan. This is a literary survival thriller, and it is about a failing penal colony that turns into this ritualized human hunting ground, which is exposing the rot at the heart of punishment, power, and violence. Basically, it's been run by this megalomaniac who, when he feels like going on a hunt, releases the inmates into the woods and kills them for sport. It's about what we allow to happen and why we allow it to happen. The main themes in this are of institutional violence and systemic failure, dehumanization, especially within prisons, cycles of brutality, surveillance, and moral decay of authority. Wild boar are cunning, so are men. Hunting technique can be applied equally to rational and irrational creatures, because, in the end, everyone is both hunter and prey, whatever their powers of reason. I've given this a 3.5 stars. It is very simple in terms of the writing. It is well paced. It is fast. It is brutal and violent and bleak and grim. So this colony is essentially an extermination ground. They send prisoners there with the intention that those prisoners will never return to society again. The main captain, guard, Melchiades, I think it was, he thrives on the power and the ability to hold people's lives in the palm of his hand, and he seems to be in some sort of cognitive decline in the book too, so I don't think anybody, guard or prisoner, is really safe from his delusions and his thirst for blood. A lot of animals are also killed in this book too, so just putting that out there. And look, in the short time you're there, you do start to root for some of these prisoners who are not good men. They are in prison for a reason, but do they deserve to be hunted like animals? No. I was just trying to think, are there people that deserve to be hunted by animals? I'm not even going to get into that discussion, to be honest with you, if there's an exception. But they are torn between hope that maybe they won't be killed by this guy and they will one day be free, or maybe they should try and take their chances and escape or fight you just have to let go of the hope and assume I will be killed if I stay here. My feelings on how it ends, like, oof, yeah, I just wish, oh yeah, I can't talk about it. I don't want to spoil anything. I just feel like the prisoners took a long time to accept reality and what their fate would be. I would have thought that they would have started cottoning on. 1 second. Cat hair, bruh. Cat hair. Sooner than they did. Vibe check. Full moon over barbed wire. Boar heads as trophies. Buried bones. I think you would like this if you like litfic that is grim, or if you were a fan of prison break stories. Similar books or films, obviously things like Prison Break, The Purge, and I Who Have Never Known Men. So those are the 3 books I've read. There was Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks, which is part of the Stella Prize. I gave that a 4.25. When Morning Requires Leaving Civilization and Going Remote, Island Style. The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, which was on the Women's Fiction Prize list. I gave this a 3.5. She Has Opinions and Stamps. And On Earth as It Is Beneath by Paula, Maia, translated by Padma, Viswanathan. I gave this a 3.5. This was on the International Booker Prize list. Congratulations, you're free. Start running. How are we going so far? What are my thoughts? So as you can see, the Stella Prize fiction list, I haven't DNF'd a book that I have picked up yet. I have rated most of them pretty highly. The only one that I didn't really enjoy was The Rot, and that's just a book of poetry. If you read poetry, you know what I mean. Either it's for you, or it's fine, or you just don't get it. So that is the weakest book on there, but it's a book of poetry. I've never read a book of poetry that I've despised and hated and gone, this is shit. It just is. So the Stella Prize list so far seems to be my jam. And then we've got the Women's Prize fiction. And this is going, this is like 50-50. So I've fully finished 3 and I've rated them all pretty decently. And then I've DNF'd 4. So it's a bit of an even keel at the moment with that one in terms of liking it or not liking it, the options. There are a lot of options. This is the longest list. So it'll be interesting to see how it balances out at the end. And then we've got the International Booker. I have finished 3, the highest rating of those being the one I just read for 3.5 at 3.5 stars. And I have DNF'd 6. So I've DNF'd double the amount that I've actually continued on with. And there are only 4 left. And out of those 4, I think She Who Remains might be the one that I think I might enjoy the most, followed by Wax Child, Small Comfort, with the Duke coming in last. I know I said, so yeah, I'm not loving the International this year. I haven't found a 4-star or above yet. So I'm hoping to finish this list off with at least 1 4-star read from this selection, but we will see. And I know I said I was going to do each vlog with 1 from each list, but I just realized that's contingent upon the library when I get the books in. If I don't get any more books within like the next week, I might just replace it with a women's fiction because there are so many of them. So that might be happening as well. But yeah, we'll see how we go. But that's everything for this vlog. If you don't want to comment anything, but you want to leave an emoji, leave me a letter emoji for good old civil. Maybe write a letter to someone. Let me know down below if you still letter write. Something that I do infrequently. So every now and again, I feel the urge to write letters to all the people I love. But I don't do it as often anymore. I think I've said everything I could say to them. I think they were like, Chanel, that's enough letters. We know you love us. We know. But mostly I'd say it's text or email. Let's be for real. But I do think it's nice to receive a letter in the mail. It's a little bit, it's nostalgic. And it's a little bit magical to get something that's not a fucking bill. Sorry. My voice just went so much then. That's everything. Until next time, stay wild, star child.